Welcome to the Red Room. I'm Rob, and this is my co-host Ivan. And today we're going to be going over the right's obsession with making up stories about migrant crime. Following that, we're going to be talking about Charlie Kirk debating college students and losing. And we're going to also be talking about the Young Turks and how desperate they are for money and validation.
The right wing's new obsession with migrant crime, the things that they're really focused on, right? The real policies they're focused on, is making it seem like migrants are criminals and that migrants are people that don't deserve, actually animals that don't deserve to be treated as humans. That's literally what's coming out of the right wing right now. So one of the top stories that's been promoted, I mean, you got to think, right? They moved on from these stories like clockwork. They change up their stories all the time. Charlie Kirk recently, we'll talk about him later. Charlie Kirk recently promoted this story. He's in the tweet he says, residents of Springfield, Ohio are reporting that Haitians are eating their family pets, another gift of the Biden-Harris mass immigration replacement plan. Liberals will soon be lecturing Americans on why they need to be sensitive to Haitian culture and accept this as a new normal. Those idiots deserve to be condemned and mocked mercilessly. Save our pets, secure our borders. Is this story true? It's not. We'll talk about it a little bit later. The police chief in Springfield, Ohio, had to come out and say this is not what's going on. They quickly had to retract this story. So, of course, I'm assuming this is probably a Breitbart headline just from the way that the title looks. It says Biden floods Ohio town with 20,000 Haitian migrants, 10 to a bedroom. First off, these migrants weren't illegal migrants; they were people that were given temporary protected status. So they came in legally to the country. There's no debate about that. His source, though, on whether or not migrants are eating cats is literally a Facebook post. I mean, in the hierarchy of which source is valid on the information, it's like on the lower tier, it's like Fox News, like the lower tier, but then slightly above it is a Facebook post. I don't even know how to just talk about this issue without getting upset, because this is just ridiculous, right? So the Facebook post says, warning to all of our beloved pet owners and those around us. My neighbor informed me that her daughter's friend has lost her cat. She checked pages, kennels, asked around, etc. One day she came home from work. As soon as she stepped out of her car, looked toward the neighbor's house where Haitians live, and saw her cat hanging from a branch like you do a deer for butchering, and they were carving it up to eat. I've been told they are doing this to dogs. They have been doing it at Snyder Park with the ducks and geese, and as I was told that last bit by rangers and police. Please keep a close eye on these animals. Listen, Rob, I don't know where you get your information from, but I certainly, if I was a respectable right-wing commentator or any commentator in general, I certainly wouldn't be talking about an issue as big as this from a Facebook post. There's questions that can be asked, right? Why didn't this person take a picture? Even if this did happen, this is an isolated event. This is not something that's to be expected of migrants. But they're making it, this is the tall tale tradition of the right wing, is to take an isolated event and make it seem as though this is the thing that happens, the reoccurring event that continues to happen. And why do they do this? They simply are racist. They don't like migrants, right? This has been going on for a long, long time. When the Irish came over, how did they portray them? They literally portrayed the Irish as monkeys. When the Italians came over, they portrayed them as crocodiles. When the Mexicans came over, what did they say about us? That we're sleepy, right? I remember when I applied for DACA back in 2012, the big misconception in the right-wing circles was that DACA students, it's the Obama-era program. It's called Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. The program would allow criminal migrants to stay in the country and pursue education. The part of it that they leave out is that no, you couldn't commit any crimes. You literally had to be crime-free in order to apply for this program. But the right wing, the tall tale tradition again is to make it seem as though the reality is much different. They were telling people that no, these are literally criminals that were applying for protection to stay in the United States. This is what they do. Another tweet. This is from, of course, this sort of made its rounds around the right-wing circles. So here's Nazi Elon Musk saying the same thing. Is anybody surprised by this? Probably not. Person's kind of making fun of it. So she says, Elon Musk, anyone caught promoting propaganda will be suspended from X. And then Elon Musk, of course, vote for Kamala if you want this to happen to your neighborhood. And it's citing a story that says, as 20,000 non-citizen Haitians destroy a town in Ohio and reportedly kill and eat people's pets, here is border star Kamala Harris bragging about allowing them to flood into our country.
At what point should we reach defamation on this? I mean, The fact that the right is held like this topic aside, I mean, the right is held to such a low standard in terms of hierarchy of evidence, like you previously pointed out, in terms of monitoring the Facebook. We're using Facebook posts as evidence to back up hating an entire group of people. Right. This is absurd. This is equivalent to where it was like Trump was saying, hey, during 9/11, I saw Muslims celebrating. How do you know they're Muslim? And, we're just throwing out lies, seeing what sticks, and the right eats it up with a fucking spoon because they are racist. They don't like migrants. At the end of the day, what they're going to be trying to do to people is they're going to try to sow divisiveness between your neighbors, people who are different than you, and they're going to make you afraid of them. Why? So they can have more control, so they can get rid of a lot of these other individuals, probably unlawfully as well, as we've seen in other clips that we're going to be going through later this evening.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is that these guys don't care about the repercussions of these stories. These guys literally do not care if the story's true or not. And by the time that people like us, try to come up and clean up their mess, people have already heard this 1,000 times, right? Like I just talked about Elon Musk.
Venezuela.
Exactly. Elon Musk has already talked about it. As I'm going to show you here in a second, Trump Jr. has already reposted the story. God knows how many people he reaches every day. It's very hard to combat this stuff, right? I mean,
this is all bad faith. You know why? Because the thing is once they know that Democrats, liberals, leftists, whoever come and correct the story, like you're saying. Once they correct the story, they've already moved on to a new mob,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So, like with the Venezuela incident here in rural Colorado, it's turned into a media circus. You have people over there filming live on TikTok. Nothing is fucking happening because they found out that the slumlord there was taking money from the tenants. He was having unsafe living conditions, and they had to condemn the building, right? They had some of the Venezuelans who were actually living there tend to a room, just immigrants there who are just trying to find shelter in a abandoned building. Abandoned. And once that all came out to light, what did we find out? We're moving to Haitians now.
Yeah.
What's next? Norwegians? Are we going to start?
We're going to be back to the Irish again.
We're going to come all the way back to my people, all right? We're going to come back to the Irish and the Polish, and we're going to be like, what are we going to be doing about those? But here's the thing. Well, it's like, how many different groups can they pivot from? How can they keep pivoting from topic to topic? Because they have no morals. Yeah. They do not care how many people this affects, how many people they hurt with this. There's so many people that just lap this up with a spoon that eventually what's going to happen is people are going to be inciting violence because they're thinking these barbaric people are here and therefore we need to defend our neighborhoods or whatever. And somebody gets shot, somebody gets killed. Yeah. And you know what? They've already moved on to 3 different cultures and ethnicities by then. So it is disgusting. We need to stop with this kind of rhetoric. We need to stop allowing the spreading of this rhetoric, and people like this need to be held accountable for their actions, especially once these stories come out to be false. Well, I mean, we already know. Like, I saw this headline, and I was like, oh, I bet this is another right-wing talking point. Looked it up. The only places talking about this are like Fox News, Breitbart. You have mostly X posts as references to the validity of this story. I knew for a fucking fact that this was fake right from the jump. And we, as a people, need to come together and call this nonsense out. Because if we don't, more hate's going to spread, more vitriol will continue to spread, and the country will be worse off because of it.
Yeah, and I mean, the repercussions of this, right? There's already been reported instances of motorcycle gangs showing up in Aurora, Colorado to that apartment complex, threatening the Venezuelan migrants that are there.
Did they actually show up?
Yeah. Oh, there's a video of a skinhead like yelling at people outside of their houses and that apartment complex that they showed on Fox News. How long is it gonna be until we have a mass murder incident because of some shit that they said? And then what after that happens, right? What are they gonna say? Hey, this is free speech. It's free speech, right? Like it's baloney. Of course, like Rob said, these people don't care about their sources. One of the people that's been really pushing the story is Benny Johnson. Benny Johnson's a fucking loser. He just got caught not too long ago taking money from Russia.
Russian op.
Yeah, so Patriot takes here. This is a great account if you want to follow it. So he says, "Guess who's pushing the migrant are eating your pets bit? Benny Johnson was identified as being a paid operative involved in a Russian disinformation plot. Not surprising. I don't even want to watch this video because I know this fucking loser doesn't have anything to talk about. He's just promoting more propaganda. He's gonna be citing the same people that Charlie Kirk is citing. There's no point in even watching that. But we know there's a coordinated effort on the right, a lot of big money involved. That they just want to put up misinformation and mislead people on the actual issues that are going on in the country. So this is just cut and dry, right? This is just the same thing happening. Another right wing loser that's promoting this story is this fucking guy. His name is Joey Manarino. This is, I think, the part that's most harmful. The implications of language like this. So he says Haitians in Ohio are eating cats. Venezuelans in Colorado holding apartment buildings hostage, Congolese in New York raping their way through the cities. It's like we've imported all the worst of the third world. Diversity is not turning out to be our strength. So if you frame migrants literally as being subhuman and, just framing them all to be criminals, this is a lot of people will look at this and be like, why don't we just go shoot them? Why don't we just go kill them? There's already people that are suggesting this. I mean, this is like not fully getting there yet, but this is like encouraging people to view it this way. This is like this is horrendous. I'm sure there's already people that are like plotting shit out for this. Also, look, I live in New York. Rob lives in Colorado, pretty adjacent to Aurora, Colorado. Listen to the people that are actually living there. This shit's not happening. People come to New York all the time. It's one of the most fucking visited cities in the world. Again, isolated crime is not true of the entire population. Every group of people commits crime. And in fact, migrants actually commit less crime on average than the native-born population. So, again, we have decades of research on this showing the opposite of what they're claiming. It's just, again, more propaganda, right? So
it's like we're doubling back all the way to the, despite making up only 15% of the population.
Right.
It's the same thing. This has been the Republican agenda for the past 20
forever.
years.
Forever,
or forever, essentially. It's like find a group, demonize, separate, conquer, right? So that's essentially what they're going for here. They're hoping that this continuation of fake stories about migrant crime is going to lead towards a Trump victory because he's apparently tough on the border, even though he didn't even complete half of the wall during his first term, and then also didn't make Mexico pay. But besides the point, this whole situation here is faux outrage that Facebook moms are just going to love. And they're going to share with their friends. They're going to be like, can you believe this? You need to lock your doors because fear sells. And fear causes somebody who is a tyrannical, democracy-hating piece of shit to get into office.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think this story has had so many implications that public officials have to speak out on it just to set the record straight. So here is an article talking about how the Springfield Police Department had to literally come out and say, no, this is not happening. There's they're responding to the viral social media posts that are happening. So the police division said Monday they have received no reports related to pets being stolen and eaten. Do we even have to read the rest of this? I mean, like, this is if they have to come out and correct this. Here's the thing I want you to think about. Why would they not lie about this? If people don't know how police get their funding in this country, they get funding from the amount of crime, right? So, like, why would they not lie about this so they could get more funding for their departments? They have every reason to lie about this. So
I mean, that's what they were kind of doing in the Colorado Springs.
Absolutely.
And then also the Aurora area. So, like, the Aurora mayor was the one who was actually going out there being like, no, this is real. This is really happening.
And then he had to fucking apologize.
Yes. And then the police department corroborated that story. Funny enough, and this is a true story, Ivan. So I was talking to my sister, and, she's engaged to a pseudo cop at the moment. And essentially, he was told from Colorado Springs higher ups to not go to Aurora because of the violence from the gangs there. Which is, when I heard that, I was like, so they're essentially spreading this misinformation so that they can increase that funding, and then also so they can achieve their right-wing agenda, because if you look at the city of Aurora, it's primarily right-wing.
Yeah, and I will say though, the interim police chief at Aurora Police Department did have to come out against it as well and say this is a harmful.
They had to apologize,
rhetoric.
man. They had to be like, hey, this is fake. Even the mayor had to like you said, he had to apologize for this fake story. When we're moving forward here, the thing is that these police departments are going to come out and they're going to have to tell the truth eventually. You know, they might be
absolutely.
like, oh, I don't know, like until the reports get finalized or there's more of a formal investigation, right? But they're going to have to eventually tell the truth on this.
Yeah, and it's only who knows how long they're going to run, like the right wing's going to run this story for, but look, they're just putting more people's lives in danger, and at what cost, right? So here's Donald Trump talking about how he's going to deal with migrant crime.
They are radicals headed up by a radical governor in Colorado that has no clue how to solve this influx of crime into his state. And by the way, Colorado's one state. It's much worse in other states. But in Colorado, they've taken over. I mean, in Colorado, they're so brazen, they're taking over sections of the state. And, you know, getting them out will be a bloody story. Should have never been allowed to come into our country. Nobody checked them. Nobody checked. Were they criminals? Were they from jails? We have them pouring out from jails. We have the worst criminals in all of these countries. 168 so far are registered, 168 countries. They're in our country, and they said, if you come back, you will be executed. You will be killed immediately. Not going to be easy, but we'll do it.
So the takeaway from that is these guys are completely okay with riling up a group of people and executing them.
Dog whistles,
at worst,
violence, calling
yeah,
for
at worst,
bloodshed.
executing them. Yeah, literally calling for bloodshed. At worst, executing them. At best, deporting them back to their countries where they're going to be executed. I mean, there's literally no other way to interpret that message from Donald Trump. So
it's funny that he says that. The way that he stated about Colorado being taken over. Last I checked,
right.
I walked outside and I didn't have I didn't need to throw up my set in order to walk out of my apartment building unscathed. So it's a drastic overreaction, and it's funny coming from somebody who lives here and Ivan, who has lived in the area as well. Aurora's always had crime. Okay,
yeah.
Shocker, right? Aurora has always had crime, but now they're taking this because they are migrants. They can inflate this story into being like they think it's Escape from New York over here. They think we have a goddamn island prison going on.
Yeah.
Which is absurd to think about, because in what aspect are we going to have an entire building taken over by hostile gangs and there not be any sort of SWAT, anything like that going on, right? That's the whole purpose of local government. Like, we're getting the cops involved. Shit, even the National Guard would have been called, right?
Yeah.
They haven't been called. You know why? Because it doesn't happen. It's not happening. Does that say that there's no crimes from any of the migrants? No, of course not. But
everyone commits crime.
Yeah, everyone commits crime. But to inflate this into being that there is this grander replacement theory style, we're getting invaded on all sides. That's what they're going for, right? They want to make us think, damn, there's nowhere that's safe.
Yeah.
So that you would be afraid and that you will vote for Trump because he's the only one who can stop it. But he's not.
Yeah, I'm sick of traveling to places and people are like, oh, where do you live? And I'm like, oh, I live in New York. And then they're like, oh, New York's really dangerous. Or there are people ask like, oh, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Denver. Oh, I heard Denver's really dangerous. It's like, bro, these are people. These are cities that people want to live in.
Any city, any city you go to, people are gonna. Well, I remember when I first moved here, I had some people like, "Oh man, you really want to go there?" It's like, dude, there's a lot of crime. I'm like, dude, the worst thing that happened to me was some homeless guy got in my car once. That was the worst thing that's ever happened to me here. And I've been around the area for about about 6 years now. There's really not that. There's crime, like there is everywhere, but it's inflated because you know why Republicans like to perpetuate that, because there's a certain amount of diversity within an area, that there's also an elevated amount of crime, which is statistically not true.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And the thing is, too, like I said, there's already been decades of research showing that migrants commit less crime than the native-born population. So there's no actual evidence suggesting anything that they're saying is true. Also, listen, I live in Flatbush, Brooklyn, all right? There's a lot of Haitians in my neighborhood.